Hello and welcome to Sacred Psychology, the podcast for misfits and mystics. Here, neuroscience and spirituality go hand in hand. Join me, Tamara Powell, on a no-holds-barred adventure outside the box, because that's where all the truly great shit happens anyway. Welcome back to Sacred Psychology. I'm your host, Tamara Powell. Today, I am once again joined by the incredible Alexandra Covucci. You all have let me know that you are really enjoying the Cracked Open series, and so it is something that I wanted to continue on a pretty regular basis. On today's episode of Cracked Open, Volume 10, Alex and I are diving into empowered relationships. If we're going to live a truly fulfilled life, that usually, for 99.999% of us, includes relationships, especially love relationships. Alex has some exciting news this week, and so I thought it was the perfect time to really explore what makes a relationship great. How do we stay empowered as individuals and even better as a couple? So if you are at all interested in love, whether you are still looking for your perfect soulmate, quote unquote, or you've been with your significant other for 10, 20, 30 years, this is a great conversation. Are you ready? Me too. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Cracked Open series. I'm Tamara Powell.
And I'm Alexandra Covucci.
And we believe that we're all really just shells hoping to be chiseled open so we can see the universe within.
We hope to pave the way for you if you're looking for a place to be cracked open, unraveled, and join us on this journey.
So we'll show you ours if you'll show us yours. Hey, Alex.
Hello, how are you?
I am so good. How are you?
I'm great.
You are amazing. Something big happened since we last spoke.
I am amazing. Yes, I am newly engaged.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It means a lot. I had no idea it was coming. I kind of thought it was a couple of years away.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I mean, Dre and I, Andrea, for those of you who don't know her full name, Dre and I have been dating for 5 years, and she was ready to go within the first year, and I was like, "Don't you dare! I'm not ready for this shit." Right? and then we moved to Oklahoma for the Air Force for her job, and I was like, "Don't you dare do it in Oklahoma!" No family, friends, or anything like that. And then we finally moved back to Boston, and at that point, we'd been together about 3.5 or 4 years. And we moved back to Boston about a year and a half ago. And I started saying to her, like, okay, I could get down with this. And then she just kind of dropped it off the table. She stopped talking about it. She's like, okay, well, we'll do it when we're ready.
All right.
And so I kind of just had no idea what she was thinking. And here we are.
How did she do it?
So she, so beautifully, she sent me, my best friend reached out to me a few weeks ago, my college roommate, and she and I are still really close. And she's like, hey, we haven't had a Kaylin and Alex day for a while, like where we just like hang out all day and disconnect from everything. Why don't we go out on Saturday, keep that Saturday open? There's like something I want to take you to. And I was like, oh my God, that's really nice of her. That's really sweet. So I said, cool. That Saturday's booked solid. Like, I'm ready. And I go out to breakfast with my best friend, and she hands me a card with a 1 on it. And quite immediately I knew something was going on. So I opened it. And
for sure. You're an intuitive woman.
Yes. There was a haiku written on it from my typewriter. And it led me to the haiku said, like, behind city walls, above a city vista, below rest and peace. And I knew that was a really beautiful and old historical cemetery nearby that she and I walked through on our first date. And so immediately I knew, oh my gosh, like something's up.
That is so my kind of first date.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Freaking weirdos. And I'm like, ooh, walk through a cemetery.
And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And so I ended up, she sent me on a scavenger hunt to 8 different places. And at each stop, there was someone I love and a new clue waiting for me.
How long did it take you to figure out, oh my God, she's proposing?
I knew immediately when my old roommate gave me the first clue and she started crying and I started crying. I knew this wasn't just for shits and giggles, you know?
Yeah.
And so we ended up, she always, you know, I asked her once before, I said, when did you first know you loved me? And she said it was the second Rachel Yamagata concert we went to at the Brayton Music Hall. And she said, I just looked at you and I knew that I loved you. And so the last clue led there. And I turned the corner and all of our family and friends were waiting there. And she proposed. She wrote a funny little poem and got down on one knee and proposed. Really sweet. Yeah.
And the whole crowd goes, "Aw."
Yeah. And people were honking their horns and it was really lovely.
That is epic.
Yeah, it was amazing.
What an epic engagement for an epic love story,
yeah.
Which is what I want to talk about today. Epic, empowered relationships, girlfriend.
Yes. I love it because, you know, we don't do things in the relationship realm too often. So this is a really fun little journey outside of our comfort zone on this podcast.
Right. So often we're so introspective and that work is so important. And one of the reasons why all of that shadow work and self-help development is important is that we can have these thriving relationships.
Totally.
So talk to me about some of the things that first come to mind when I say empowered relationship. What does that even look like for you?
You know, it's funny. We kind of just touched on self-introspection. And I think an empowered relationship for me starts with an empowered self, right? And
amen.
It starts with, you know, I mentioned I did a live today on Facebook and I said a couple of months, I knew Dre as friends for a couple of years before we got together. And a couple of months before we actually got together, or slept together, or however it started, I wrote down a list of everything that I want.
Just made me laugh.
Yeah.
That is how most adults get together.
Yeah. I was like, it was, that came first. Mm-hmm. I wrote down a list of everything I wanted in a partner, you know, down to like, I want her to love surprising me and supporting me and spoiling me. Check. Great. But after I wrote down the list, I looked at it, and this was when I was like 25 or 26, I forget. I looked at it and I was like, you know, am I treating myself the way I should be treating myself to invite this in?
Hallelujah. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. And I realized I wasn't. I was looking for somebody to make me feel worthy instead of attracting somebody from the place of being worthy. So I think the first and foremost for me, empowered relationship is empowered self.
Yes, and it has to be authentic because I see so many, especially women, sometimes men, but usually women walking around and they are like, well, I have high standards and here's my list and I am not accepting anyone that does not meet my list and I know who I am and I know what I'm worth and I'm just going to get that. And it always falls short for me listening in on those conversations.
Totally.
It just does not feel very grounded. I can't put my finger on the oomph, the beingness that is missing in there, but there is a lot of beingness missing in that.
For sure. Yeah. Because I think sometimes it can come from a place of defense, right? Like,
yes.
Nobody's going to fuck with me in the sense of like, people have the power to fuck with me.
And guess what? They're not going to fuck with you in the fun way either.
Right. Exactly. And so there can be like, there's this fine line of learning self-respect, self-compassion, and self-worth, which kind of includes the gamut, right? Like having your boundaries, knowing your limits, loving yourself, being soft with yourself, you know, but also keeping your standards. And I think the more you do that for yourself, the more you invite that in.
Yeah. And it's so much easier to operate from that space of grounded beingness that is not caught up in reactivity or having to push or pull or cling or push away from anything. When you do truly know who you are, you got to start there. That's why most of our podcasts are on that, because you need to know who are you and what do you want? Not just in what do you want in a partner, what is important to you? Because while you and I, Alex, share so many commonalities, the things that light us up are inherently different at the same time.
Totally.
Like the amounts of it and the way that it comes in, etc.
Totally. And
when a woman knows really what she enjoys, I just don't see her feeling the need to spout off like those other women. That right. Too. I'm like, me doth think she protests too much over there.
Right. Because I think there's a difference between, and I think this goes for like calling anything you want into your life, but in this case, a romantic relationship and an empowered one at that. I think there's a difference between quiet confidence and quiet knowing and quiet groundedness versus screaming and shouting, I'm worthy as fuck,
Yeah, which is so tricky because while I'm saying that, I'm like, and for you women who are hella vibracious, God bless you, Lord knows, I resonate with you on a certain point, but there's this, it's the nuance, it's the intention of it. You can shout your, I don't know, what lights you up rather than this tantrumy and energy.
Right. And knowing, that takes a lot of awareness, right? To really understand, okay, what place am I coming from? So I used to ask myself a lot when I was, and keep in mind, before Dre, I was not in a relationship since college. I'd slept with a couple of people and had these like weird, not really relationships, but like, a few flings, if you will. But it was about 6 years or so between my last relationship and Dre. And a big reason was because I was not at all connected with myself. I was not at all able to connect to what I actually desired because I was coming from a place of how can somebody else give me everything and fix me and make me happy and da-da-da. And so it was weird. Almost by desiring that someone else did it for me, I wasn't tapped into my true desires, right? Which was to give that to myself and then meet someone in both of our empowered places.
Right. No, it totally does. So what do you think made you ready for Dre? Because that is really where I want to start. What makes us ready for an empowered relationship as much as we crave it? I had Will come into my life. We joke about this because we met in study hall at 16. And oftentimes you didn't know that?
I did not know this part of the
story. Shut up. You're going to have to go look at the picture I just shared on Facebook this morning.
Oh my goodness. Great.
We met, I was 16, he was 15 at New England Christian Academy in Swansea, Massachusetts, where I was like one of 21 seniors, and he was a sophomore. He was in my sister's class and definitely not on my radar, but we had assigned seats in study hall in like 7th period. And so we were literally like the Breakfast Club. Picture the Breakfast Club. Yep. That was us right there. He was
I love that.
He was Emilio Estevez, and I was definitely, what is her name? Molly Ringwald, my doppelganger. Mm-hmm. But I was dating somebody else. And so he joked that like I was the first girl he ever fantasized to in real life. I had no idea.
That is amazing.
Yes, it's a great story now. Turns out. So anyway, so now 20 years later, we reconnected in 2016, right? Both ready for love, both having been betrayed and heartbroken multiple times. And that could have been a recipe for disaster, but it wasn't. And I often mourn the 20 years that we missed. Like, what if we had gotten together in, my senior year? What if, because a bunch of the other people at our school did get married and are still together or divorced.
Wow, what is happening in this town?
Well, that's just the way it is in Christian schools, girl. I'm guaranteed a ring by spring. Yeah. That's the joke. So
I did not go to one of those schools.
Yeah. I mourn that. And he's always said we weren't ready. We would have been one of the divorces. And so,
yeah, because yeah, I mean, you're different people, right? Like
totally different.
I started dating when we met. I didn't even like her. I was like, oh, she's so annoying.
Right. Poor Will. He's like, you just did not look at me. He's like, I walked up to you at your graduation and was like, congratulations, Tamara. And you were like, oh, thank you. And went off about your day. And I was like, I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh, that is so cute.
No idea. Yeah. But the point being, whether you have been together for 30 years, because some of our listeners may have already been in a long-term relationship, or you're just getting started reconnecting, right, like I am, How do we know that we're ready for an empowered relationship? How do we make ourselves ready for an empowered relationship? What worked for you in those 6 years? What did you learn about yourself that now once Dre came into your life, you were able to make it work?
Yeah, great question. And, I think what really did it for me, a couple of things. Number one, I stopped waiting to get there, right? I think for so long in my life, I had this idea of checkpoints, right? So when I lose the weight, I'll be happy. When I find the love, I'll be worthy. When I And I had to really take a look at why am I waiting to get there? And I still do it sometimes. I think we all still do it. It's when I get to this much money, or when I get this, or when I get that, then I'll have this. And I noticed that I was placing a lot of myself in everything outside of me. I was placing a lot of myself in everything outside of me. I think the best thing that I ever did for myself was spend some time alone. And by that, I mean, I did a lot of reading and a lot of looking in the mirror, not so much literally, but a lot of looking at, why do I do the things I do? And just getting curious about myself. I think really getting curious about myself allowed me to access a part of me, and allowed me to access a part of just the way that the world works and the universe that I hadn't been even aware of. And this kind of opened up to how do I stop needing things and start desiring them instead? And so I think that was really
Covucci quotable number one.
That was really the first switch.
Tweet that out, bitches. How do I stop needing things and start desiring them instead? Because your entire energy shifts when you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, at the time, I'd been friends with Dre, and I remember we all hung out in the same friend group, and we would go, take mini vacations together. And I remember I never really had feelings for her, but I remember feeling like she felt like home. You know what I mean? She always just
yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't think anything of it. But she and I are so different. In our early 20s, she was the girl who was out partying till 3 a.m., sipping on vodka, lime, soda waters. And I was in bed reading a book about binge eating and how I could be worthy once and for all. And so
this is so beautiful.
We were extremely, extremely different. And I, at the time, had been fantasizing about this perfect relationship. But I was doing it from a place of needing it, right? I was I need it, and I need her to be like this, and I need her to be into this stuff, and I need her to this, and I need her to this, and I need her to that. And when I stopped needing, I was you know what? Could I be happy alone for the rest of my life? And until I could say yes, I don't think I was ready.
And that freaks so many of you out right now. I know it does. But it is what all of the world's spiritual leaders teach, all of them, especially Eckhart Tolle will talk about how the second that you stop attaching to the outcome, people are how do I even do that? I still want it. No, you're allowed to want it. But when you're not caught up in the how is this thing going to manifest for me? So when you decided for yourself, Alex, you were could I be happy? Really what you were craving was that theme, right? Of happiness, peace, adventure, whatever it is for you, boo, right? Listening.
Totally.
When you decide I'm willing to give myself that and focus on that rather than I have to get it in this job or this, since we're talking about relationships, and this perfect partner, suddenly, God, that's when the magic happens every time.
Totally. Well, you almost take the pressure off of that other person unknowingly.
Exactly. Right? Which then makes them more attracted to you, whether they know it or not.
Totally. And so immediately I was if it doesn't mean I don't want it, but if I was told that I was never going to have it for the rest of my life, right? Or that I would never get that relationship for the rest of my life, would I be okay? And for a long time I was no. And once I was you know what? Yeah, because I love myself. I like spending time with myself. I can find things that make me happy. I have great friends, I will be okay. I can make myself happy. I can respect myself. Once I did that, literally, I think within 2 months, we were waking up after a little bit too much tequila.
I love it. There's an interesting psychology phenomenon that happens there. Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, I just heard this on one of his podcasts about.
I meant to listen to what you posted.
Oh, you have got to. You're gonna swoon. I'll be shocked if you don't love it. Of how this is why wishing wells work. And how psychologically we end up creating a wonderful self-fulfilling prophecy. This is my Tam's paraphrase now. Because we make our wish, we toss this thing in it, and we let go. There's this release there. It's this is what I want, and I'm letting the universe know, and I'm going on about my day. We don't do that in real life in other ways. Perhaps because we think about it frivolously. But the point being, we're like, it would be totally awesome if I had a brand new charger, muscle car, follow me home, vroom, vroom, right? I would love that. You know what's funny? Right. I actually was just talking to Will about that. We're both kind of into muscle cars, and that's like his dream car is a charger. And I shit you not, on the way home from work, because I've been playing with this energy of non-attachment and just loving it and flirting with the universe, I had a charger follow me for 20 miles.
Wow.
And I was like,
I love that.
I just kept laughing. I probably look like a fucking maniac to anybody next to me because I was like, do you see this white charger with like blue racing stripes? I was like, it's literally like the universe was like, I got you back, like winking. Like, this is how easy it is when you just are like, I want that.
Yeah, that's fun. Incredible.
Because of what it brings.
Right. And I love that it never ceases to amaze. Right? You know, every time we have one of those experiences, it's still just as exciting, like the first time, right?
Right.
Because we remember how powerful we are. Yeah. So I think that's a really, I love that.
The wishing well.
That analogy of the wishing well, because it's perfect. And it takes a little bit of, I think a lot of people get really down on themselves. They're like, well, I did let go of the outcome. I'm like, yeah, a day doesn't count. Like
it's a practice.
It's a way of being.
Before I, quote unquote, manifested Will or was ready for Will, however we're going to put it, I was writing about it, thinking about it for a good year, 2 years. I go back through my journals and I talked about the kind of relationship I wanted and really what I was missing. And I was non-attached to the outcome in a way that I was like, all right, universe, I either need this in my current marriage, my former marriage now, or just in life in general. Like I was not willing, I kept saying this over and over to myself, I'm unwilling to go into my 40s without transcendence.
Right.
I will not go there. There's more to life. I know that I'm meant for more. And that to me is where this empowerment starts. When you're willing to, as you put it, look in the mirror and say, all right, girlfriend, like, what do we need to work on? How can I be the type of partner that would attract that? So interesting other psych research. I got to get nerdy.
I love it.
We always say that opposites attract. They really don't. They do in certain small things, but what's more true is birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah.
At least on the core values. It's the core values are the only thing that consistently shows whether or not a marriage will be successful or not, is can we be matched on the things that are big to us. And so I don't remember how many thousands, I think it was hundreds of thousands of participants on the dating websites. I think it was Match.com. They collected data on them, taking a look at who was matched with who and who ended up in relationships and even better marriages. The more aligned and matched they were, the more alike they were, the higher the satisfaction rating.
Wow, that's actually a surprise because I feel like Dre and I are so different, and that's why we work well.
But I would go do an interesting exercise. Go journal on this later. You were probably different on characteristics of the how. Right,
but value. Totally. We have very similar values, like what we want, the way we start our lives. That's for sure. That makes a lot of sense.
There needs to be enough variety that we balance each other out in what I'm strong in and what he's vulnerable in. And so I don't want to get too big into the Enneagram, but y'all know Alex and I love the Enneagram. Go take it at the EnneagramInstitute.com. I'm a 7-8. Will's an 8-7.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny. Dre's a 9. I don't know what any of her wings or anything. I'm a 4. She's a 9.
Yeah.
And ironically, my best friend is a 9 as well.
Which is perfect because you're such a strong feeler and you wear them on your sleeve, and 9s do not. They go inside with it.
Totally. And so Dre really, and especially when I'm, fluttering about with too much emotion, she'll anchor me down and be like,
There you go.
Get it together, woman.
I've heard you say it over and over.
Serving you, right?
You're being a victim, Alex.
Oh, I love it. I love it when she says that to me. I'm like, oh my God, that's so sexy.
You're so hot right now.
I know.
So
I'm like, yes, call me on my shit.
Bringing it back around, this is how we set up the empowered relationship, whatever that looks like for you, by looking in the mirror and going, what do I need to be to attract that? Knowing that statistically, you can test me on this, Google it. You're going to find research after research showing that people date who they think they are appropriate for.
Yeah.
We date people who are on our level. So if you, my dear listening, are attracting loser after loser, and I'm using that non-clinically, of course, then there's something about you, and speaking to what you were just saying, Alex, that your self-worth, you must not be giving out that homing signal.
Totally.
That you value yourself, and simply throwing up Facebook I'm getting ranty, Facebook post after Facebook post of I'm an empowered woman is not going to do it. In fact, men pick up, or women, whatever you're into, all the things like me, are going to feel that energy coming off of you of, okay, she wants to be an empowered woman, but.
Totally. And you can tell, I mean, you can tell. And here's the thing, if that's you and you're in that space, realize that there is some calibration that will take place, right? So I think for me, for a little while, I went a little bit into the energy probably of I don't fucking need anything, meh. But there
overcorrection.
Right. There was a recalibration taking place because you kind of have to learn how to stand on your feet. It's, give space. And this is where self-compassion comes in. Give space for fucking up a little bit. And
I fucked up twice.
Oh yeah,
Huge.
yeah.
Those are just the big ones.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of. It still takes self-compassion some days. I will porno that for days sometimes.
Yeah. No kidding. Because otherwise, we don't give ourselves the spaces to grow. The thing that stunts our growth the most is how much we judge ourselves and berate ourselves for what we are, what we're not, what we haven't been, what we have been, et cetera, right?
Yes. Amen.
Which also goes into another point about attracting what you want. Don't judge the package that it's in. And I don't just mean physically. Dre and I were friends.
But physically too.
But also physically too, right? Dre and I were friends for years. And I literally remember saying in the first couple of months of our friendship, I would never date her. I would never date her. Now I'm marrying the woman, right? Mm-hmm. And I said I would never date her because we were different. I wanted to go home and read. She didn't seem to she didn't light incense or whatever. And she, she was out there, she wanted to go sing on stage. She likes to sing Cher when she's drunk. And oh my God, it drives me nuts. Oh my God, it drives me nuts. Everyone loves it when they've never seen it, but I've seen it. I see it all the time. And so, we were just at totally different points. She was at her young 20s drinking phase. I was at my young 20s, quarter life crisis for 10 years phase. And had I judged the fact that it was her, had I even gone to that point of being is this who I'm supposed to be with? Had I gone to that point, it never would have worked. I would have sabotaged it or something because I didn't expect it to come in that package. And she's beautiful and sexy and I love her, but we were friends. I just didn't expect that we would ever have a romantic inclination towards each other until we did.
I love that. And if you are in a longer term relationship, if you're the person listening to us that's already been with your partner for a significant amount of time, this points back to looking at them through fresh eyes. One of the couples that I see that really, they may be hurting by the time they show up in my office, but the ones that make it are the ones who are willing to put the water under the bridge on hold, all the messiness, and to go back to how did you see that person at first? Or even being able to pull back and go, it has been 20 years. Bitch, you're not the same that you were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
He's not either, or she's not either. Can you get curious again and look beyond what you're so used to seeing her sing Cher.
Oh my God, it's so annoying.
Will loves karaoke too. We're going to have to get together someday.
We will. Yes.
I cringe.
I know. I always do Eminem, but she loves that. Do you believe in life after love? Oh. Do you believe in love? He loves it.
Will's favorite is Superman by, what is it? 3 Doors Down, I think.
Oh, yeah. we got to go. We got to go.
I go crazy, then will you still call me Superman? I'm like, you go, baby. Okay. I'll call you now. You're Superman.
Just lost all of our listeners, but whatever.
I want to go back to the self-forgiveness piece because I think that is so huge. A person who is empowered, a powered relationship is one where hopefully both parties are able to. I've been starting a daily practice of forgiveness, and the sooner the better. Like if I can think to do it in the moment when I feel that shame come up or the guilt or the embarrassment, I try to do a quick, Tamara, I forgive you. Forgive me for even being mad at myself right now. And I forgive myself for not knowing better. The Buddhists have a word that I'm going to butcher. I think it's Maitri, Maitri. It's about self-friendship. And it's like looking at yourself like a bestie going, yeah, okay. Look at your life, look at your choices. But, we didn't choose well in the past, but we don't hold that against ourselves. Right.
All of us have that friend that attracts the same damn partner every fucking time. And guess what? We're still there to support her. We're like, all right, I know exactly how this is going to go, right? Until they figure out their pattern.
Right.
So that's kind of the same approach. It's like, you don't berate your friend. And if you do, they don't really listen anyways.
Right.
It's when they're ready. And it's through getting curious with them. Hey, why do you think this is going on? And why do you think you're attracting this dude? And that's the same thing that we can do for ourselves. And it's really powerful. We just don't tend to do that.
Yes. And so let me read you something I just came across last night, also in Michael's book, Dr. Michael Bentworth's book last night. Oh, I was like, tears were flowing. Alex, this is perfect synchronicity. He offers several ways of forgiveness practices in his book, Life Visioning. Highly recommend it for any of you.
I'm writing this down right now.
Yes. For any of you who are already somewhat familiar, but even if you're not and you're just into the deeper work, it is to me an intermediate towards advanced practice. So good. I think I'm going to record this later on and set it to music for my tribe, but just listen and tell me this does not make you swoon. Cradle yourself in your heart and then silently or aloud speak words of forgiveness and release. For example, I take responsibility for my actions and forgive myself for all that I have knowingly or unknowingly done to hurt myself and any other individuals. I release myself from the bondage of unforgiveness. I am free, free in the freedom that has always been mine. I claim it now. Guilt, shame, and blame are now neutralized by the unconditional love, compassion, and forgiveness which saturate my awareness, my heart, my entire being. Right here and right now, I am cleansed of the toxin of unforgiveness. I begin afresh and give thanks for this realization.
Woo! And that's all we have for today, folks.
Right?
That is all that we...
Pass the Jack and Coke and the cigar.
I know.
And let me take it a step further because depending upon the personality, we either seem to have trouble forgiving ourselves or forgiving others. So high achievers often have trouble forgiving themselves. And I'm not talking about just success. I'm talking about you type A, overly anal at times, go type women and men. And then I've noticed, other people get really caught up in, perhaps for really, really good reasons, Dr. Beckworth gets into. There are times where we have been traumatized and people have done us so much wrong, and our psyches just don't know how to let go of that because it almost feels like we're opening ourselves back up. And so it's one of the reasons why I love the Hawaiian forgiveness practice, but because you don't have to be feeling it. It's not like the Christian version where you have to forgive and forget, which is not the true Christian version anyway, by the way, but we'll save that for another podcast. That's often what we've been handed down though, right? This just says you just say it and release it. Well, listen to one of Dr. Michael Bentworth's, or Beckwith's. I always say it wrong because he's got 2 B's last names. Beckwith Bentworth. Yeah. I will put it in the show notes. Don't worry about it right now. He says, I forgive you, fill in their blank with their name, for knowingly or unknowingly hurting me. My forgiveness of you is total and complete. I am free and you are free. All is well between us. Or, I like this one too. I free myself and I free you, whoever this person is, from all blame of knowingly or unknowingly hurting me. Through the power of forgiveness, all is well between our spirits. You are free and I am free.
I love it.
Right? I love that because, relationships, they hurt at times. And when we're preparing to enter into an empowered one, let me tell you, one of the best things that you can do, whether you're already in a relationship or not, is to release all day. I feel like when we're walking around all day, maybe you've felt like this too, Alex, we collect dust from the shit that happens throughout the day, right? And by the end of the day, we're all muddied down. And so to me, this forgiveness practice of just being like, I'm free. I'm releasing this because I don't have time for this in my energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I literally pictured like dust particles rising off of us right now, like just floating away.
Yeah, I love that.
Freeing up the energy between you and Dre, between me and Will. Because if I go home and I'm pissed off at a business partner or a client or somebody else, that's going to interfere.
Yeah. And I think too, to add to that in kind of a roundabout way, one thing that I think has been really key for us to have an empowered relationship in the sense of like, I do my best to make sure I don't bring shit to her doorstep, right? Like frustration from work or whatever. But we also both have cultivated the willingness to hold each other up to, a loving standard, to hold each other up and call each other on our shit. We've developed a willingness with each other to go into the uncomfortable conversations, right? So I've known and seen a lot of relationships where people don't talk, they don't communicate. I grew up in such a household. It was like communicating totally different planets. It was like, can't you see that this is what you're really saying? And this is what she's really saying, this is what he's really saying. And I think, a really big thing in our relationship is if I do bring my shit to her, or if I do forget to like shake off the day, or if I do mess up a little bit, we have cultivated willingness to hear each other, willingness to talk about difficult things, willingness to see each other as, doing our best, right? Like she knows if I'm being a raging bitch, instead of getting
something's
defensive,
off.
Right? Instead of getting defensive, she's like, we got to talk, honey. What's up? And a lot of people go into defense, right? But she will take that vulnerable willingness and open up instead of shut down. And so I think, as much of the shaking off as we do, I think to step even deeper into that empowering relationship is have willingness.
Because I love that word, willingness for everything.
I love willingness, like willingness for president, Jesus.
Yes. Yes, please. Because willingness goes the distance. Willingness is flexibility. Willingness is adaptability. Willingness is, this isn't necessarily the way that I wanted it today, but you seem to need it. And so, okay.
Yes.
It's all sorts of things. Willingness to stand up and fight for your relationship when need be. Willingness to bend over backwards from your and to let go when need be.
Right. Willingness to listen to Cher again.
Yes.
When I don't want to hear it in the car after we've had a couple glasses of wine, right? But I know she loves it, right? And so it's really finding that balance of like, all right, how do I do my work and shake off what I need to shake off and have self-compassion and have compassion for this other person and for anybody who's wronged me but also like, how do I then take that a step further and have the willingness to look at the really uncomfortable stuff? And it's funny, people comment on our relationship a lot, like friends or even our family members. They're like, you guys have a really solid relationship. And I realized, and I also knew I was friends with Dre when she was with her last partner, and they fought all the time. They had a really tumultuous relationship. And we reflect on that sometimes, because I remember her as a very different person in a relationship, and now she's a very different person in our relationship. And I noticed we both have put in a lot of willingness to bite our tongue, or to not hold our tongue, or to really, really, really step into the discomfort, to sit and stare at each other when we want to walk away, to hold each other when we want to push each other away, right? And so I think, and that's not comfortable, as you know.
Hell no.
As fuck. Sometimes I just want to yell at her and be like, fuck off, get out of my face. But that's precisely when I say, I need you to hold me.
I love it, because you're speaking to that asanga rakachita, that spontaneous right action that's commensurate to the situation. So in that moment, you felt like running away, but what you needed was the hug or the presence. Let's talk it through. So,
and what she needed as well, like it's hurtful for her.
So
if I shut her out.
Yeah, we're both runners.
Yeah,
they're both stayers,
and that creates a fracture. And the more fractures you have, that's when you break, and that's when you break up.
Right. So an empowered relationship understands that spiritual partnerships are mirrors, and they're going to bring to the surface things that we need to work on. And they're going to bring to the surface our perfect balance as well, if we will allow it.
Right.
And so I just had this thought that I'm sure there are some listening who are either bewildered or a little fearful of, what if my partner's not fully on board? How do I know if I'm not being codependent? If I'm not just... You guys are talking about, self-empowerment and work on yourself and be willing to show up. What if my partner doesn't?
Take it away, Tams.
I tell you what, this is a paradox, and it takes a little bit of trust in me that I know what I'm talking about to say, when you do the work,
yes,
you are grounded, you just know.
And the more, if you're in a relationship like that, where you're not sure, look at yourself first. Where are you not sure of yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you not sure of how you're showing up? Where are you not sure if you'll do the work?
Right.
Right? Because I think, I've asked Ray before, I'm like, why were you not really present for your other partners? Because again, I've seen her in relationships. Yeah. And she has said to me, you demand more because you treat yourself with more presence. Like, because you're questioning yourself all the time. I have to keep up with you. I keep up with you because I love you, and you're doing the work for yourself. And so I think that if I didn't do any of this work, sure as shit, she wouldn't be showing up like this. Right. And if she didn't do any of this work, sure as shit, I wouldn't be showing up the same to her.
Right.
So if you're asking that question, what if my partner fucking sucks? Then start with you and see where you are. And if you think you've done a crap ton of work and it still is not a fit, and then feel into that.
And if I was just gonna say, if God forbid the relationship ends, you will walk out with nothing but love for your partner, knowing that you can gift them with their own path at that point.
Right.
But before you get there, do your own work. And there are books and podcasts and professionals and plenty of people to love you and support you and help walk you through that.
Absolutely.
So before we end, Alex, I want to put you on the hot seat for a hot second, and you can feel free to turn around however you want. Yeah. But what is something that you're still working on, that this empowered relationship, it's been amazing and it's obviously really working, but what's something that you're having to be conscious of to keep the empowerment going?
Ooh, that is such a good question. And I am more than game to answer it. Yeah. Let's see. I would say I still sometimes struggle with, pretty briefly, I still sometimes struggle with worth in certain situations, right? So not worth that she can be in my life, but I've noticed I've been working lately on, because I revert back to this place in me that's like, where I want to check in with her. Like, am I doing enough to keep you here? Mm-hmm. And I notice sometimes I do that. I'm like, am I doing enough to keep you here? Not from a place of, hey, I just want to check in on our relationship, but from a place of like, am I good enough?
It is such a type 4 problem.
Right. And, she's always like, why do you go into this space? Because I give you no reason.
Right. It's not about her, is it?
Right. It's never about her. It's like, we trust each other immensely. Like, I never check her phone or check up on her. We're really solid there, but I notice it's usually me. I need to work on these little pockets of going into worth stuff. Like, am I being enough? Right. I also notice I go into places where I just want to give her all the responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been working on responsibility for the life we create together instead of expecting her to do it all. Right. So whether that's bills or whether that's whatever it is. And so I would say those two on my end. And I think the responsibility piece is probably something that we both work on together, because she just wants to take everything and deal with it. I just want to give her everything and deal with it and have her deal with it.
And that can become codependent, which would not be empowered.
Totally. And so that's where, we've actually started creating Friday night dates where we sit down and we look at our finances, our feelings, our,
Ooh, those are some big F words.
Yeah. What our fucking, right?
Mm-hmm.
We look at a lot of, the F's in our lives, and say like, hey, am I taking enough responsibility, or am I giving too much responsibility, or, are you not giving me enough responsibility? So that's, I think, something that we've both been working on together, because we can easily, and I can easily go into that codependent space if we're not aware, which goes to show, anybody listening, we're not perfect. And that's why we always continue to do the work, but we also don't get down on ourselves about it.
Really stop for too long. Have a moment, tap it out. Oh, porno it.
Yeah. So I think that's what I'm currently working on. What are you working on? If I may turn it around.
Yeah. The thing I'm always working on as a type 7, not having expectations of the experience. I always crave the experience. And so I will spend so much time and energy daydreaming and having this excitement, because it's fun for me. Like, this is not a bad thing. It's not neurotic when you're a healthy, grounded 7 of,
right.
Even planning Will's birthday today. I went, shopping at Target to get the gift, and then the perfect little card, and then the perfect little bag, because that's what I do. And then over to Publix to get the stuff to make him, even though he's the chef, it's his birthday. So I wanted to make him homemade biscuits and gravy, which is a labor of love. You got to make it gotta make the bacon to get the grease, to make the roux, to brown the sausage, to, with the chopped garlic and then to the liquor store to get that stuff. And then I got balloons and a banner, because I'm perfectly ridiculous like that, and decorated the door space. And if that poor boy does not wake up and give me all the surprise and awe, my poor little 7 heart, and he did, by the way, but if he didn't, I'm just devastated. Or if I have an idea that we're going to have a fun family game night and the kids are not in it, or acting up and being a fool. It's hard, because I walk around all day just feeling like life is so magical. And what gets me off, literally and energetically, is when other people are sharing in that moment with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really crave lovers who, like you, surprise me, embellish with me, savor in this with me. Tell me that I'm the most magical thing you've ever experienced in your life.
Yeah.
And if I'm not getting that, 7s are really prone to telling partners that they're bored.
Yeah. That's really good awareness.
You bore me. Mm-hmm.
That's really good awareness.
If I have a set idea of how a day is going to go and it does not go that way, I have to really catch myself, struggle, and bring it back and be like, is this about them? Was it really a slight, or is this, Tams, that you just had an expectation of an experience that didn't happen?
Yeah.
So that's what I work on.
I love that. And I think it's never done, but that's not a bad thing. Right? Our work is never done, but that's not a bad thing. I think a lot of people in relationships want to get there to where the relationship is perfect and it's dreaming on.
No, you'll be so bored according to psychological research. You're actually at the highest risk of breaking up.
Yeah, that is boring. You know, it's like when we have things that we want to grow towards and work on, it's like, great, I've got my best friend here and we're going to figure this out. And that sometimes means that we hit some speed bumps and we hit some bumps in the road. And that's okay. I think once you hit that empowered place in yourself, you can recognize that no matter what happens, you'll be okay. And Dre and I even often say, you know, we have an understanding and a knowing that if anything were to ever happen and we were not in each other's future, we would be okay. Mm-hmm. And we would still be able to be grounded in ourselves. I think that is really, really important. But that doesn't mean that
I'm not quite there yet. I'm still in the honeymoon phase. I want to be his Yoda backpack. He's not allowed to go anywhere without me or die. I don't mean that literally, people. I just mean, like, I just got the boy back. I'm not ready to let go. I will work on my non-attachment.
I'm like, when we say that, I don't mean if she was with anyone else, I'd be okay.
Alex has limits.
Fuck that noise.
Yeah. No. Oh, any final thoughts you want to add to this? I feel like this could be like a 4-parter.
I know it could be. The last final thought I would add is, don't try to change who you are for the relationship. Become who you want to be and enter the relationship that way.
Even if you're already in it. Right. That's the beautiful paradox of it. Like, grow into yourself. Right. Right. And, you know, as well, I didn't think Dre would ever, she was out partying. I didn't think she'd be cool with an 8:30 p.m. bedtime, but she is, you know, sexy to me.
Right. Yeah, I know. And the thing is, I remain true to who I am. I didn't change who I was. That's not to mean we don't bend for each other, but I was true to who I was and what I love, and explored other things from that place instead of trying to please her to keep her. And so I think that's probably the final thing I would say.
Well, I know we've been talking about romantic relationships, but I am so happy that your empowered ass is in my life as well.
I am too.
This is delicious.
I know, these conversations just light me up.
Well, until next time. Thanks for listening to the Sacred Psychology Podcast. I pray you found some inspiration and empowerment to go out and make this life the most fulfilling possible. You can follow Sacred Psychology on Facebook and YouTube. If you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Tag us on social media and let us know what you think as well. Please note that the information provided is not meant to convey professional, psychological, or medical advice. If you could use such services, I highly recommend seeking them out from someone you trust. To get in touch with me personally or to see how we might work together, please check out ariatherapy.com or talesfromatrapezoid.com. Until next time, everyone.